All right, you are live. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How are we doing tonight? As we bring you another Monday night Moshiach Matters class. And we want to dedicate tonight's class to our Rebbe. It's the Rebbe's birthday, of Nissan Tuesday night. So let's get cracking here. We're in Parshas Tzav. And as we spoke about last week, we had restarted the Nun Aleph Nun Beis sequence. This is the second Sikha of the sequence. Nun Aleph. Parshat Tzav. Okay. Toich Noi Shel Chodesh Nisan. Chodesh HaGeula. Shnikar Kach Al Shem Inine HaMikrizi Chag HaPesach Zaman Cherusenu. Murgash Michar B'Shabbos Shelifnei Pesach. Okay. The general idea, something of the month of Nisan is Nisan is what we call as a Chodesh HaGeula, the month of redemption. It's known, our sages teach us that we were redeemed in the month of Nisan, and we will once again be redeemed in the month of Nisan, referring, of course, to the true and complete redemption. Okay. And Nisan, of course, is the month of Pesach, Hag Pesach, starting Motzi Shabbat. And it's referred, another name for Pesach is Man Chirusenu, the holiday or time of our freedom. Because when you're in exile, and that doesn't have to be just physical exile, it could be spiritual exile, you're not free. And the whole concept of redemption is to break free from exile. That's the idea. And this is emphasized especially in the Shabbat that precedes Pesach, this current Shabbat. Referred to as Shabbos Hagadol. Interesting enough, there's I don't want to get into it. It's a long perush of one of the Rebbe's secretaries at one time actually referred to the Shabbos before Yud Nisan as the Shabbos Hagadol, being that it's the Shabbos that precedes the Rebbe's birthday. Anyhow, Nisan hu meloshen nes. The root of the month of Nisan is nes, nun samik, which stands for miracle. Furthermore, Nisan has two nuns. This is indicative of nes nisim, of double miracles. Nisim and niflaot, the miracles and wonders, referring to the miracles and wonders that God performed for us when He took us out of Egypt. Shemesmalim biyuchad. And this is a month filled with miracles. And this concept of miracles is emphasized even more on the Shabbos before Pesach, which we said, Merech Hag Pesach, it blesses the festival of Pesach, especially the Shabbat. It's called Shabbos Hagadol. And we see how interesting is that this Shabbos that blesses Pesach, literally it's Pesach comes on Saturday night, Motzi Shabbat. So it's the Shabbat that literally goes right into Pesach, which is an interesting concept. The Rebbe speaks about this idea at length, that when we have a festival directly connected to Shabbat, which results in a 3-day festival, right? We have Shabbat, and then we have 2 days of Yom Tov. The Rebbe calls it a very special time because you have 3 days of Shabbat and Yom Tov, referred to as Hazakah, or a very strengthening connection that connects Shabbat and the Yom Tov together. So it will be a special time with God's help in Beis Hamikdash. So this Shabbat is called Shabbos Hagadol, the great Shabbat. Hanesha Malaka Mitzrayim B'chreichem. And referring to the miracle that took place of the firstborn of Egypt warring against each other. That has here this Lezicharon the Doros Shabbat Shavikarim b'Shabbos Hagadol, and this is to be this memory of Shabbos Hagadol is to be recounted every single year. Furthermore, Shabbos Hagadol is the beginning of the redemption and the miracles of going out of Egypt. Let me continue inside. I wanted to make a comment, but let's see if the Rebbe talks about this first. The Tzarek Lavan. First, we have to understand Lama Davka Hanesha Malka Mitzrayim Buchreichen Nikra Nes Gadol. First, the question is, why is, out of all miracles of going out of Egypt, the miracle of the firstborn of Egypt warring against one another? It's known. An internal strife broke out amongst the Egyptians, and they started slaughtering each other. The firstborn started killing each other. There was a big machlokas about whether they should listen, they should not listen, and they ultimately started killing each other. And that is referred to as the great miracle of Pesach. So the question is, what is it that's so wonderful about this particular miracle? And furthermore, based, why is this the beginning of the redemption and the miracles, this particular Shabbat? Feels like the camera keeps refocusing. The Rebbe said it appears to be another miracle. Why is it the great miracle? And why is it the beginning of all the miracles of redemption? Okay, the Egyptians started warring against one another. Okay, the firstborn started killing each other. Fine. Why is that such a great miracle? Gam hatzarich hasbara v'shakol shel nezeh im yom hashabbat dafka. Furthermore, we must explore the relevance to this miracle that is connected to Shabbat. Shikvo nezer the hadorosh b'Shabbat hu Shabbat kadol. And furthermore, why has this become a permanent fixture or reminder for all generations on this Shabbat that is called Shabbat Hagadol? Furthermore, what is the relevance to the redemption and the miracles with Shabbat, specifically with this Shabbat? Yom HaRishon Shel Pesach, and the first day of Pesach, Hal B'Yom HaShabbat, that falls on the day of Shabbat. Okay, now we're going to dig into this, but it's just interesting to note, if you're paying attention to what's going on in the war in Gaza. I don't know why we call it Gaza; it's part of Israel. Very interesting today. President Netanyahu met with Donald Trump in the White House. And Donald Trump basically called him out and said, first of all, why would Israel give away Gaza in the first place? He said, this is prime real estate. It's beachfront, waterfront. Gaza was beautiful, a beautiful place. He said, why would Israel give this away? He said, for what? For promises of peace? He said, that didn't work out very good, did it? It's like he told him right to his face, what the hell's the matter with you? You don't give away land for promises of peace. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. So anyways, it's interesting to note, if you're paying attention to what's going on in the war over there, just last week, this exact situation started playing out in Gaza. The Hamas terrorists started killing each other. There is an uprising because apparently what was happening is some of the people in Gaza were protesting. It's a whole long debate whether it was staged, whether it was real. It doesn't really matter for our purposes. But the people in Gaza were protesting, and then Hamas began killing them, the ones who were protesting. And someone who got killed, one of their family members, avenged their blood and killed some of the other people over there. So in a way, we see the same thing was playing out where they were literally started to kill one another. So let's hope that will continue. Base. Shagula Isaire Moshe Rabbeinu. Ooh. First, we have to understand this concept that the main redemption of Egypt that took place was through Moshe Rabbeinu. Goalam Shel Yisrael, the redeemer of the Jewish people. Goalam Shel Yisrael Kafisha HaTorah Misapras Aruchais. Echa Kodesh Baruch Bachar Dafka B'Moshe. And therefore the Torah goes to great lengths to speak about how God specifically chose Moshe to be the redeemer of the Jewish people. Until the point that Moshe, as a true leader, said, it's not for me. Send someone else. Send by the hand of the one you will send. Referring to Mashiach. Basically, Moshe was referring to Mashiach, saying, God, I know that Moshe was a prophet. He was able to see into the future. And he knew that he was not going to be able to enter into Israel. And he knew that the Jewish people would enter into exile for a long period of time. So Moshe said to God, why are you sending me? Send by the hand of the one you will send, referring to Mashiach. In other words, I don't need to be involved in this process. We don't need this long exile. Just bring the redemption now. But obviously Hashem did not agree with Moshe's request. Instead, Hashem insisted that Moshe should be the shliach to redeem the Jewish people. Now, we just have to pause for a second and put all of this into a frame of reference and understand once again that the sichos we are learning are the most important and the most recent sichos we have from the Rebbe. As we spoke about at length at the end of the sequence of Nun Beis, the final sicha V'yakel, that the Rebbe had a stroke. Literally a few days after he gave the final sicha of Nun Beis, up until this point in time. And the Rebbe also is a prophet. That's not disputed by anybody. And the Rebbe knew, of course, that the stroke was coming because nothing happens to a tzaddik without their permission. So the Rebbe was well aware that the stroke would take place. He was well aware that Gimel Tammuz would take place. And so he gave us this set of sichas known as Nun Av Nun Beis, collectively called as Devar Malchus, to prepare us for this time where we don't see him, the time of his concealments, and get us ready for the full and final redemption. So it's known, the Rebbe says many times in these sichas, that there's a direct connection between Moshe Rabbeinu and Mashiach. That Moshe is the first redeemer and Mashiach is the last redeemer. Moshe Rabbeinu coming from what we call as the sphere of Chokhmah, which is the highest sphere, if you will, and Mashiach coming from Malchus, which is the lowest sphere. The Rebbe refers to these as the Makabel and the Mashpia, the light and the reflector. And very interesting enough, we have the exact same sequence. When the Rebbe got chosen to be Mashiach, to be the final leader of not only of our generation, but of all the Jewish people in this generation to take us out of exile, he refused the post, just like Moshe Rabbeinu refused the position. The Rebbe said, no, I don't want to do it. In fact, they spent a year trying to convince the Rebbe to be Rebbe before he actually agreed to his post. And there was quite some time openly calling the Rebbe Mashiach where he refused to accept. He never denied it, but he refused to accept the post until eventually he did. So we see some direct parallels between the redemption of the Jewish people in the times of Egypt through Moshe Rabbeinu and the final redemption of the Jewish people, which is moments away, should happen right now, from our Rebbe, Melech HaMashiach. So everything we're learning, we got to keep this in perspective and realize that there's direct connections to what we're learning, to our time and place, and that it's not by coincidence that all these things are being mentioned, connecting the Rebbe to Moshe Rabbeinu. Okay, let's continue on. And we could see how Moshe has a strong and deep connection to the redemption. And therefore, it is through his power, that the Jewish people got redeemed. Because this is a concept we study a lot in this year, that Hanasi Huakol, the Nasi is everything, meaning the leader of the generation and the generation are one. You don't separate between the head and the body. We're all different aspects of the body. There's only one head. And therefore, the power of, as we learned in the Yechia Melech Sicha a couple of weeks ago, the power and the main seat of the soul was in the head. And from there, it spreads out to the rest of the body. Without the power from the soul and the brain, the rest of the body couldn't get its energy source. So the power for redemption comes specifically through Moshe, through Mashiach, through the leader of the generation. In fact, that's why we get the power to do anything. And that's why you see shluchim, you see among shluchim, tremendous amounts of power, especially some of the bigger shluchim with bigger shoulders. They are able, able to accomplish unbelievable amounts of things. They grow communities and they have hundreds of Beit Chabad because it's not their power. And they will openly tell you it's the Rebbe's power. And when we feel that we don't have energy or power to do what we're doing, it is a direct sign that our yeshus, our ego is too intertwined with what we're doing. Because if we're able to move our egos out of the way, we become what is called a tzinor, which is a pipe. And that pipe allows the energy for God and the Rebbe to enter into us and to give us our power to succeed in whatever task it is that they have sent us to do. And therefore we see that the sages refer to the Moshe as the first and last Redeemer. Moshe nikar goal acharoin. Referring to the final Redeemer, even though the Rebbe puts in brackets that it's Mashiach himself who will be the final Redeemer. Why is that? And just like when I took you out of Egypt, I will once again show you wonders. In fact, the redemption from Egypt was the beginning and the opening up of all subsequent redemptions. Including the future redemption to come. Because the redemption specifically comes about through the leader of the generation. That is where we get the power to experience redemption. And again, remember the idea that redemption is what we call in two divisions. There's baklalot and bapratut. There's the general redemption when all the Jewish people get redeemed, and there's personal redemption that we are able to experience right now in our individual lives. And that power comes through the Rebbe. Gimel, so let's explain this a little bit deeper. Atachli zugol the Mitzrayim hu the kachsi etchem li la'am chayosi. Lechem lelokim v'yadu data ki ani Hashem elokecha umotzi etchem mitachas tzevodas Mitzrayim. That the ultimate redemption that took place in Egypt, where God said, I took them to be a nation upon myself, that I shall be their God, and they shall be my nation, and I took them out from Egypt. God himself took us out of Egypt. Gilui elokus lamata begulas Mitzrayim כדי שבני ישראל כפי שנמצאים בעולם יראה זויס ויכירו וידעו את הקודש ברוך הוא וקבלו את עצמו הוא התורה במצווה של הקודש ברוך הוא. God himself took us out of Egypt specifically to give us his Torah and its mitzvot so we can serve him. ועל-ידי העבודה שלהם לגלוס אלוקוס כפי שנפלא במשכן. The galus, elokus and God was redeemed through the Mishkan. And build me a mikdash, and I will dwell amongst them. And then furthermore, he will dwell amongst us in the base of Mikdash. And God's ultimate dwelling amongst us will take place in the third temple. Mikdash, the temple God himself will build, Beit Nitzchim, will be an eternal edifice. There'll be no more exile. And the true and complete redemption. And then the ultimate revelation of God will take place, and the entire world will see God. And the glory of God will be revealed, and all flesh together will see the mouth of God speak. Zehu gam hatam hagulas Mitzrayim ba'dafka yedei nisim v'niflois. And this is the reason why the redemption of Egypt took place in a miraculous way, in a wondrous way. Kivan shedafka yedei neser lamara miderech hateva. It's specifically a miracle that is above the normal courses of nature. Mizgada begilui hakoach abliti mugbar shehakodesh baruch hu. And a miracle is something that God's power is revealed in a way without boundaries or limitations. Usually God measures his energy out, so it's concealed within the nature, and everything works in such a natural way. When it comes to the miracles of Egypt and going out, and the miracles that will take place immediately as we're going out of this final Egypt, we realize that it is a miracle of an energy that God uses that is above any type of being boxed in or any type of limitation, if you will. Psh. Now we're talking business, Moshe Levi. Now you're getting prepared. That's what I want to hear. That's what I want to see. That's how you get prepared for your wedding. Learning about Moshiach and Geula. Okay. And God reveals himself in a miraculous way to remind the world that he's the Baal Habayit, that God is running the world, even if it appears that he's hiding. There's nothing in this world that takes place without him being behind it. And all the plans and all the treacherous things that the secret cabal and hidden governments and all these sick actors that are doing a mullik from behind the scenes, God sees everything. And he's aware of everything, and he allows them to do what they're doing up until the point where he won't allow it anymore. And not only that, the fury of God will come down upon them. That's going to be something we're all looking forward to. And therefore, through the power of God himself, he performs miracles that are above or changes the very nature of this physical world. Because the very nature of nature is what is nature? Nature is a concept that God is concealed through. It's a veil. It's how he hides himself from the rest of the world. Nature is the way that God is concealed to give us free choice. So we think somehow that this whole thing is just running by itself. And God gives this power to the Yidden to bring about the redemption. And to be free from Egypt. And God gives us the power to go out through any type of boundaries or limitations, including the exile of Egypt. And he will bring us to the time of our freedom. True freedom from any boundaries or limitations. If we only realize, let me continue first. The paragraph, including the limitations of the clothing, of the garment of the nature. In other words, how do I phrase this? An overwhelming majority of the challenges and difficulties we have exist in here. They don't exist out there. Out there is a reflection of what's going on in here. And we have all created what is known as glass ceilings. In business, a glass ceiling is that you've created a false roof. A businessman says, okay, my business does, $3 million a year. That's the most we've ever done. And he convinces himself that he can't do more than $3 million a year. And that's where he stays, which is fine if that's what he wants to do. But if he wants to grow and he's convinced himself he just can't because that's his limitation, that's called a glass ceiling. It's not a real limitation. It's a false roof that he's placed over them. In fact, they've done studies where they've taken flies and put them in a cup and put like a cellophane wrapper over the cup and punched a bunch of holes in it so they could still live. And the fly spends, I don't know how much time it is, a day, 2 days, banging and trying to get out of the cup. And they keep hitting the top cellophane wrapper and falling back down. And then they remove the cellophane wrapper off the top of the cup. And guess what happens? None of the flies even try to fly out of the cup anymore because they're convinced that they can't get out. They're trapped. We do the same thing to ourselves. We trap ourselves in our own thoughts, in our own limited consciousness. And the Rebbe is saying that right now, as we're entering into Pesach, we are capable of breaking through any of these limitations, any of these boundaries, including, the Rebbe says, the boundaries of nature, meaning to feel that somehow we are limited. And this is one of the themes that the Rebbe speaks about at length in all of these sikhs, is that we are not limited at all. We have the power of God inside of us, and we are operating on a very small capacity of what we're really capable of. And the Rebbe is taking us in these sikhs of Nun Aleph Nun Beis out of our limited capacity and teaching us how to live in a state of geula or redemptive consciousness. And this complete freedom will take place in the true and complete redemption. And as the pasuk says, just like the days I took you out from Egypt, I will once again show you wonders. Wonders that are completely above from the normal courses of the nature. And furthermore, we see that these wonders take place even as they're compared to the wonders of going out of Egypt. In other words, the wonders of redemption will be even more powerful than the wonders of going out from Egypt, of the true redemption, the final redemption. In a way, areno, meaning God himself will show us. HaKodesh Baruch Hu ba'atzmo mora lehem, she'az mizgal ha'kol gam ha'sharach legilui gam ha'mechusah, nira ha'emes ha'penimi sh'ha'nis ha'gas ha'tevis, v'shleimus ha'nagas nisis, ad gam zeh sh'alagamri nifla. The Rebbe said, including the relevant to being revealed, also to what is covering over, meaning we will see the true inner dimension of the way of nature and the complete revealing of miracles until it will be completely what we call nifla'ah, wondrous, that we will see the hand of God behind nature. It's known that the nature is brought about through the name Elohim, and the true power that creates the world is from the name Havaya. Havaya is above the nature. Elohim is the nature, which is why every Yom Kippur, the final prayer that we say, and the Nila prayer, the final things we say 7 times, Havayahu Elohim, Havayahu Elohim, meaning the God that is concealed in the nature is the same God that creates the nature. And the Rebbe said we will see that revealed. And this power to bring about the redemption for the Yidden. Go all shall Yisrael. And the Rebbe again emphasizes this aspect, that the power for redemption is through Moshe. It's through the leader of the generation. It's through the Rebbe. You can't have Geula without the Rebbe. It doesn't work. It's not possible. You look at the picture of the Rebbe, and he's the Yechida Klalit. In other words, the little spark of Mashiach that's inside of us is connected to the Rebbe. And the more you can focus on the energy of the Rebbe and connect to him through his teachings, through his guidance, through his instructions, especially as we're learning here tonight in the Sichos of Nun Aleph Nun Beis, it brings redemptive power to you. It opens up your capacity for redemption. And from this we can understand the unique thing about Moshe. It's Hashgacha Pratis. We have Moshe with us. Since we're talking about Moshe, he must have known. It's expressed in the Tehillim of Mizmor Tzaddik, the 90th Tehillim, which happened to be the Rebbe's Tehillim that year. Of course, there's no coincidences. And it begins with the prayer of Moshe, Ish Elokim, man of God. Only Moshe Rabbeinu, only the leader of the generation is referred to as Ish Elokim, or a godly man. Literally, God's energy completely personified into a physical body. Doesn't mean he's God. That's another religion that believes that man is God. It means that God is completely one inside of Moshe and the leader of the generation, Rebbe, and there's no separation. In other words, his will is directly the will of God. And God will establish the work of our hands. Referring to the establishing the work of the hands of Moshe Rabbeinu. Oh, wow, it's a long sikha. Let me just do a time check here. Okay. הראשון מבין אחד 10 מזמורים, מכאן עד לדוד מזמור, שמשה אמרה, מזה מובן. And by the way, it says that the prayer of Moshe, this is the first of the 11 mizmorim that were composed by Moshe Rabbeinu. I don't know if you know that, but the Tehillim of David HaMelech were composed 139 of them by David HaMelech and 11 of them by Moshe Rabbeinu. And this is one of the first mizmorim composed by Moshe Rabbeinu. It says, Mikan the David mizmor, Moshe Amra, Shemazeh Muvan, Shemizmor Zem, Mizbata. And it's referring to the service of the Yidden, specifically through Moshe. And God will establish the work of our hands. It was referring specifically to the blessing that Moshe was requesting of God to establish the Mishkan, that the Shekhinah should enter, that God's presence should enter the Mishkan. This is establishing the work of our hands. And it was specifically through the prayers of Moshe Rabbeinu that caused the dwelling of God's presence to enter into the Mishkan, the tabernacle, as they say in the English vernacular. And this is a general intention that is upon us and is applicable in a permanent way every single generation, meaning that it is specifically through the request of Moshe, through the leader of our generation, that brings God's divine presence into this world. Hey, Yor Berzev Hagdim Yuk Bekfuah Halashon Betchilas Mizmor V'Siyoyma Ma Tam Bekfailim Shel Bekfulias Shel. Why does it say 2 times that God shall establish the work of our hands? 2 times it says it in the pasuk. Why? One of the explanations is in order that this godly energy that comes down and enters the world shall be permanent. Kaviyot is referring to a permanence. And they're referring to these 2 things that will be permanent. Aleph, manhaga haragil, hanhaga tevisha oilam sheish bo b'koach lachnis. One is referring to the power of a very high level that is connected to the normal occurrence in things in the world, which is the normal sequence in the world, and that the power to enter into the world in a revealing of God, so it can change the nature of the world, and that the world should become a vessel for revealing God. Hello? In order that it should become permanent and eternal. This is a concept we speak a lot about in these classes, that the Rebbe emphasizes this often, that it's not enough to draw godly energy into the world, but that the energy that we draw down through our mitzvot should be permanent and eternal, right? When you're making changes in your life, for example, right? Like, how do we know that we've passed the test? God is always testing us, not in a way of a teacher with a class to see our grade, but in a way to prepare us for a higher level of consciousness, a higher level of closeness to Him, to bring us closer to Him. He has to help us remove any obstacles, which are usually our own yeshus, our own sense of individuality, our egos, if you will, are the main thing that blocks God from dwelling upon us. So he's constantly refining us and preparing us and bringing us closer to him. And the idea, how do we know we've passed the test? Because we get tested again in a similar situation and we react differently. And then we know that that energy that we have absorbed has become permanent and eternal. We're not going to fail that test again. We got it. It's what we call from Chokhmah and Bina into Das, and then into the Midot. Meaning it's become knowledge. It's become part of you. And therefore it emphasizes a unique power. And it has the ability to enter into the world and transform the world and really change the nature of the world. And not just the world, in us. That's the idea. The idea is to change our animalistic nature into a godly nature. And that's a process. It's not one and done. This is not the mathematical equation. Sometimes you got to hammer away for long periods of time before a new level of divine energy or consciousness enters, which is why the external head of Keter, otherwise known as Arak Anpin or Ratzon, is referred to as Arak Anpin. Arak Anpin in Kabbalah means the long face. Why is it the long face? Because the energy to come down from Keter into Chokhmah, Bina, and Das, and eventually into your emotional attributes, to change you, to transform you, is a long process. You have to be very, very patient. Connection to God and higher states of consciousness and awareness, lahavdil, to anything that's very important in this world. Business people sometimes spend years and years and years getting to a point where they're able to have a new breakthrough and increased growth. So your connection to God, people are very bizarre. They think that they're just going to start doing mitzvot or put on tefillin, and all of a sudden their whole life is going to turn upside down. And usually what happens is it does sometimes for the worst part. I've had countless guys come to me over the years from the center saying, I don't know what to do. I started keeping Shabbat, I started keeping kosher, or I started putting on tefillin, and my life got so much harder. I said, okay, so you know it's working. Because the Yetzer Hara is going to try to give you every reason in the world why you should just quit, that it's not working. And that's how you know you're doing something good. Because something good takes time. Something evil or the opposite of good can be done very quickly. To really establish a new baseline, a new energy, a new consciousness, that takes time. Okay, ad kan nifsad base. Hakoach tzarich liridas mitlabshus ad. And the second energy is an energy that is more in tune with the world. It's not above the world. And specifically through this second energy, it makes the world a vessel for it. And it creates an inner dimension for that energy to come down. In other words, the first energy is a very powerful energy that has the ability to change the world. But without that second, more refined energy, the world's not a vessel for it. So what you have is what we had in the beginning of creation. It's known as Shvirat Kelim, meaning things keep breaking. That's what happens in our lives when the energy hasn't absorbed, when we loop, when the same thing keeps happening, and we keep saying, why does this keep happening to me? Because the energy hasn't been able to absorb into your life. It's still an energy God's trying to channel through you, but for whatever reason, it's still blocked. So therefore, sometimes it takes a long time until the vessel is prepared for it. And that's the second level of the energy, where the vessel now is empty enough, right? Usually our egos, that energy can not only enter into us, but it becomes permanent and eternal, meaning it never goes out again. It's solid. It's part of you. Vav. שני עניינים אלו ויש לומר שאילו בין שני עניינים כפולים תחילה סיום בזמן צדיק, and the Rebbe said, and specifically why that is the reason why we say 2 times in Mizmor Tzadik that God shall establish the work of our hands, corresponding to these 2 levels of energy that we just spoke about. Bishleimus v'gilui shel Moshe Rabbeinu, and it's both connected to Moshe Rabbeinu. Shu b'mutza muchubar ben HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'nei Yisrael, that he is the connector and the intermediary between God and the Jewish people. Ani oimed ben Hashem uvenechem, that I will stand between God and you. That's what Moshe says. Mutza tzrich lios bo shnei ininim shehu mechubar. And what makes him a mutza? A mamutza, or a go-between, has to have energy from both levels, right? If you take Malchus of the upper worlds, you say Malchus of Atzilus, for example, it has to have the energy of Yisod, the sphere that gives into Malchus. And then Malchus transforms to Keter, it has to have the energy of Chochmah, of the lower world below it, Yetzirah, to give into it. So in this reality, it's like a middleman in business. A middleman has to have the capacity to understand the deal from both sides so he can work properly both ends of the deal. That's a kind of a grub analogy, but it's what popped in my brain. Moshe Rabbeinu literally stands between us and God. And that's why he's called Ish Elokim, man God. Because from a physical part down, he's man, but from a spiritual part up is pure godliness. And he has to have a direct connection to be totally godly and totally earthly at the same time, right? We see this to extreme with our Rebbe. Our Rebbe went to college. It's like unheard of for a Rebbe to go to college. He studied physics and engineering in Sorbonne in Paris, like a very high, sophisticated, elitist university. It's like unheard of. What is a Rebbe doing in college? Because our Rebbe, and now's not the time to go into it, but there's hundreds, thousands of stories of the highest levels of army, generals, politicians, kings from all over the world that came to the Rebbe for strategic advice. Do you know how many high generals and prime ministers and presidents of Israel wrote countless articles and gave countless interviews and saying it's the most mind-boggling thing in the world? That they sat with the Rebbe for hours, and the Rebbe gave them detailed instructions about where to pinpoint bombs, where to put to shoot things, where to send soldiers. He said the Rebbe's never been to Israel. This is top classified information that no one knows about. How does the Rebbe know this? The Rebbe is so connected to every aspect of this world, and yet he's the biggest Gaon and tzaddik in Torah knowledge that there ever was. It's insane. It's a complete, have to have both of these energies. He has to be, it's like we learn in the Chia Melech Sikha. A Melech is completely removed from everyone else in the world, including the biggest rabbis. And at the same time, he's the utmost closest to every single person. Fascinating. All Ish Elokim Oimrim Chazal, Im Elokim, Lama Ish Ve'im Ish Lama Elokim. And therefore it says, why did it say man and God? Mechetzi Lamata Ish. Because from half and below, he's a physical man, and half above, he's a godly person. And therefore, he composes both of these energies, Ish Elokim, man and God. It's the power of Moshe that enables God to connect to the rest of the world. It's fascinating. Upratius Yoiser, more specifically. And this is a concept that is so lost on people who don't get this concept of a Rebbe. You have this conversation with a Litvach, and they'll want to strangle you. They can't comprehend this idea of what it is a Rebbe. Even though Moshe Rabbeinu is a Rebbe, it doesn't make much sense. Because in their world, I'm not picking on Litvachs, I'm just saying people who are not connected to a Rebbe, in their world, Moshe was, that was Moshe Rabbeinu. That was thousands of years ago. But they don't understand. You need a Moshe in every generation. You need a head in every generation. And that head is a pure godly individual. Only the Rebbe. And therefore, this man of God is connected to two complete opposite things, man and God. And he's one person. That even though we see that the name Elokim is the same gematria of Teva, meaning the nature, and it's referring to a level of godly energy that is enclosed and gives life to the world. And therefore he's called man of God. Nevertheless, he's still a man. Shel Moshe, just like Moshe. Because he has that deep connection to the world. And therefore he's totally together with God. But not the level of Havaya that's the level of godliness that's above the world. He's connected to the name Elohim, meaning the godly energy that's within the world. That's connected to the world. Excuse me. The Eidech Moshe, and therefore we call him Moshe. Why? Who shall al shem ki min hamayim mishtahiu? Because he was drawn from the waters. What waters was he drawn from? We all learned the story about Batia, the daughter of Pharaoh, how she took Moshe out from the little thing he was floating in, the little wicker basket, right? That's down here. But the water it's referring to is the source above, because we know everything that happens below happens above. And Moshe is Mem Hey, which is referring to the sphere of Ma, is the name of Havaya, which is above Ish Elokim, which is above Elokim. It's the level of godliness that's Elokush Lamayla Mahabriya. Talking about the upper worlds, talking about the sphere of Zah, where the godly name Elohim is connected to the sphere of Ban, which is the energy down in this physical world. So even though Moshe is Ish Elohim, his source is from Havaya. He's from a much higher place. And that's where he was drawn from, the upper waters. And therefore it says the level of the soul of Moshe comes from the highest of places. The iskasia, the concealed, hidden upper worlds. Much above this physical world. This is what it means he was drawn from the waters. Mishtahu, Bigilui, Ba'am this Gaia, Olam Hagashmi. He was taken from the concealed worlds, the hidden waters above his soul, and brought down into the revealed worlds, down in this physical world. And therefore down here he was drawn from the physical waters. And even though he's down here in this physical world, he's continuously connected and one with the upper worlds. Nimsa Moshe Ish Elokim, and it comes out from this that he's called man of God. Remez al Shnei Haninim Hana Etzel Moshe, referring to these two levels of Moshe we spoke about above. Aleph, Moshe is Kashrusai Im Elokush Lamara Mahabriya, the level of Moshe that's connected to the godly energy that is above from creation. And second, Ish Elokim, is Kashrus Im Elokim Shebe'erech Habriya, the level of godly energy that's connected to this physical world. And therefore he's able to give the power to draw down this level of godly energy to the souls of us in this physical world. In such a way that we can be proper vessels for this godly energy, in a way that it becomes permanent. The level of godly energy in this physical world. Until the level of godly energy that is completely above the world is in the world. There's so much here to unpack, and we don't really have the time. This is really a proper fabringen to get into this, because it's unbelievable what the Rebbe is telling us. And again, as we pointed out at the beginning of this class, the Rebbe is not only referring to Moshe, of course, he's referring to himself. And the long and short of it is that the closer you get to the Rebbe, the more Torah of the Rebbe you learn, the more of his hara, more of his teachings, more of his guidance, his instructions on what to do and how to do it in this world, which is all packed in these sichos that we learn here every Monday night. The closer you get to God. And the closer you get to God, the closer you get to yourself, your authentic self. Zayin. Al Pizay Yovan Gan Makafa Bisyon has Mizmor And we see this time again the doubling over of the pasuk, and you will establish the work of your hands. Because Moshe has both of these energies, as we just said. And therefore, we find Moshe down here physically in this world, that he's connected to the eternal and permanence of this world, as we said above, in a revealed way. Hold on, I want to see where these brackets end. Sometimes it's hard to track down the brackets. Oh. And your deeds will become eternal. Moshe lo mate, because Moshe never died. Every time we learn these sikhs, always remember, keep it drilled in your brain, that the Rebbe gave all of these instructions to us right before he knew that he was going to lose his ability to speak, and he was going to go into concealment and make it appear as if he died, and that he's not with us. Every single thing we're learning is a preparation for the times that we're in. And it says right here, Moshe lo mes, Moshe did not die. Including his power. And all the power and all the deeds of Moshe are eternal. And again, every time you hear Moshe, plug in the Rebbe. And therefore we see that Moshe is the one who composed and brought down the prayers for God to establish the work of our hands. That the divine presence shall dwell amongst us. And that, what does it mean to establish the work of your hands? The Mishkan is, of course, a physical structure for God to dwell in, but it's referring to our physical bodies. It's referring to the fact that through the power of Moshe, through the power of the Rebbe, we're able to establish ourselves in a deep, permanent consciousness with God. There's no higher thing. The Rebbe says numerous times, one is only poor in dots, in knowledge. Wealth and poverty are connected to here, to dots. A successful person in business, because he knows how to make money. It's in knowledge. It's from process, from understanding, from doing. The more we connect our knowledge to the Rebbe and to Hashem, the more we're a vessel for success, not just in materialism, but in spirituality, in every aspect of our lives. Oh, it's such a tragedy that more people are not learning this every week. It's painful to me. I don't care. It's like people say, only 30, 40 people watch your show. I don't care if one person watches it. It doesn't matter. I wish thousands would watch it, because it's not for me, even though I'm benefiting from it. Don't get me wrong. When I teach, it's better than when I learn by myself. It helps me. But every week I go through this, and it's just alarming and beautiful at how much knowledge the Rebbe is giving to us, and at how many people are just not partaking in this knowledge that is readily available to us. These are the two connections again of Moshe. The dwelling down and drawing of the Shekhinah, the divine presence, into the Mishkan, in a level of godly energy that's above the world. And the second, the energy is enclosed down here physically in the world. And therefore we see two times the lashon umasye deno kanu aleinu. Va'ofen shel makif from the Maira, yus bli gvul b'taklis. One referring to the level of makif, this very strong, powerful, godly energy that we spoke about, that is too lofty, if you will, to penetrate into the world. And the second, umasye deno kanu, shu mechayizek etzam masye deno etzman, establishing the work of our hands down here in the physical world. The highest and the lowest. This is our DNA. Adam, the first man. What is Adam? It's Aleph Dam. Aleph is referring to Elokus, godliness. Dam is referring to blood, the most lowest aspect of our physical being. That's what we are. We're literally walking, I don't know what the word is, like two opposite juxtaposed energies of godly energy and worldly energy. And our work in this world is infuse them together. The problem is you have people on both opposite ends of the spectrum. You have people who are very godly in their energy, but they're totally disconnected from the world. They want nothing to do with the world. They lock themselves in a room and they study Torah all day long. And then you have people who are very worldly people with no connection to God. And what does it mean to be a Lubavitcher? It means that to be a Lubavitcher means to be connected to the Rebbe, to take upon herself to connect these energies by being deep in the kishkas of the world, by dealing with aspects of the world that are low energy things that people don't want to deal with in every aspect of our lives, and bringing God into that. And that's why the Rebbe says the difference between Gola and Geula, exile and redemption, is one simple letter, Aleph. Aleph is a lufo shel olam, the master of the world, God. Enter God into every detail of your life, not just when you pray, not just when you learn, every detail of your life, and you experience redemption. Confide in the Tushia. And this is the idea that the energy will be eternal and doubled over. And this is also referring to the eternal redemption that the Rebbe's power will bring about. But Pratis Yosher, more specifically, Al Rashi, as Rashi further rings down, Mishnei Pa'amim, Omas Yadenu Kanehu, 2 times saying Omas Yadenu Kanehu, that their work will be established by our hands. And again, just to point out the fact that this is the Mizmor Tzaddik that was the Rebbe's Mizmor, the Rebbe's Tehillim of that year. If you think that there's any coincidences in all these things, you see the exact Elokus, Hashgacha Pratis in this. Aleph al Malchus HaMishkan, HaMelechas, HaMishkan, Rabbi Yerichan, Yisrael, V'Tefila, V'Tisrei Shechina, B'Mas Yadei Mishkan. And the first, referring to the work of the Mishkan and the blessing of the Jewish people and the prayer that God's Shechina shall dwell amongst us into the Mishkan. And one referring to the establishing the work of our hands. It will be eternal, the work of Moshe. Referring to holiness, eternally. Including the matters that are permissible of your hands, your deeds, in your ways. This eternal power that comes from Moshe Rabbeinu to establish our hands. It's also connected to Shabbat. Al pi zeh muvan sheletfila zu yesh shaychus miucharas im Shabbos. Shebaprat is more shirli yom haShabbat. The connection to the song we sing on Shabbos, Hu chelak mitfila Moshe, is connected to the prayer of Moshe. Ad bomasem v'chodre shmoshe mizmor shel yom haShabbos. Yesh amar shaychus hal pasuk mizmor shir yom haShabbat. Oimer hazal. Oiske b'Shabbos kaful muvar b'kama makamot shekafal hu shtei dargos. Referring also to the mizmor Shabbat. Also has 2 levels to it. B'kol Shabbat, on every Shabbat, ma'ade Shabbat v'yoyma Shabbasa menucha be'erech legiya u'menucha be'etz. There's 2 levels of the menucha, of the peace, of the calmness we draw down on Shabbat. Menucha be'erech legiya menucha be'etz. The menucha, the essence of the menucha, of the rest, and the menucha that's connected to the world around us, our vessel, if you will. Al derek chiluk ben shem elokim, and they're connected to the 2 levels of God. B'Shabbos boyim shnehem yechtav, and in Shabbos both of these energies are combined together. Yesh l'mor shezehu al derek kafal b'tchila hamizmor, Ish Elokim, and just like the beginning of the Mizmor, Ish Elokim, B'siyum Mizmor, V'hi Noam Hashem Elokeinu Aleinu. And the end of it is, and God will establish the work of our hands. Shenoim Hu Hadarat Shabbat, referring to the energy of Shabbat, which also combines these two opposite energies, the highest and the lowest. It says, when a woman bakes challah on Shabbat, it's holier than a man putting on tefillin. She's taking from the wheat, from the physical ground of the earth, and turning it into something holy. Umas Yadenu Kananeo establish the work of our hands. Hein Manucha ve'erak ligia damasi yadenu ve'hein Manucha etzem aleinu klalos v'yosra kavana v'masi yadenu v'yomei hachol umas Yadenu kana elenu v'yom haShabbat kol melech chayasi, referring to the energy that we get from our work in the work week, right? It's known that Shabbat is like your spiritual gas station. Depending on how much energy you use during the week to help others, mitzvot, Torah, davening, v'chula, v'chula, that's how much energy you get reinfused with in Shabbat, right? So there's that energy that's connected to the work week that we do throughout the week. And then there's the energy of Shabbat that is not connected to that at all. It's just the essence of Shabbat in of itself. But Shabbat, bedugmas Moshe, and Shabbat, as we pointed out, similar to Moshe. That it's an eternal idea, an eternal energy. And it's known that Shabbat is a foretaste of redemption, because it says in times of Geula we'll have eternal Shabbos. And the very essence of this menucha, of this rest, will be eternal. Okay, that's, wow, a lot of deep stuff here to unpack. A lot of deep stuff that I was throwing our way. Okay. All bihanal yesh lamar hatam lakach shitfila zu tfila mosh ish elokim hu mizmor tzadik tchilim hein matzar hamispar hein matzar ha'ois tzadik. Now we're going to take apart the letter tzadik, which is the Hebrew gematria for 90. Tishi'im, 90. The tchilasai, and again, that's the verb is tehom that year. Just want to point that out one more time. Tchila zmani hazeh chazaka inin chazaka. 90 is referred to a chazaka. It's a derivative of 3, a multiple of 3. Ha shloish pa'amim nasa hadavar kavua. Hein mitchazek v'kach yishar la'ad. Right? It's excuse me. 30, which has a hazaka of 10, 3 times. 30, 30, 30. Hazaka again connected to the number 3, referring to permanence. Shleimus, the mother, mechazak the shlosh, permanence of 30, 3 30s. Tishi'im, which is 90. Shehu shlosh pa'amim shloshim. Shlosh pa'amim eser. That's what we just said. 3 times 30, and 30 is 3 times 10. Hashlemus to call misparhu kashahu kla ma'aser. We know that 10 is a complete number. Kivan she'eser hu shlemus mispar shemora al hashlemus he'inyan. And therefore, it's indicative of a completion of a completion. Va'al pizeh shloshim, and 30 is shloshim b'chazaka. It's another hazak. V'tishim hu shlemus mamada b'chazaka. It's a completion of a hazak. Tzadi. Ha'oif and ha'regel shabo kasoivim chazal. Oizehu tzadi. Bakama makoimos kasoivim tzadik. In many places, tzadi is referred to tzadik, referring to a holy person. Shadel kashraim hadargas tzadik. I just find it fascinating that the Rebbe's kapitel, that his tehom was 90 when he gave this over. If you don't see this allusion to the Rebbe, I mean, you got to really be delirious. Because it says that tzaddik, a righteous person, is the foundation of the worlds. And it's brought down in the Sfarim, tzadi hu lashon tzed, Move on. Tzad Pirushim Shel Tzad Shali. Okay. Test. The Yesh Lamari Indian Vizet. And further to explain these matters. It's a long sikha. Wow. HaKadosh Baruch Hu bara es hadam va'olam ba'ifen shishneim shnei tzedim. That God created man from two levels or two sides. Tzad HaKadusha v'tzad HaKeneged. Yetzar HaToiv v'yetzar Hara. One side of holiness and one side of the opposite of holiness. Or what's the word that Rabbi uses here? So it's an opposite. Okay. One side of good, the Yetzer Tov, and one side of evil, the Yetzer Hara. And the Torah was commanded to us through Moshe as an inheritance to Yaakov, the Chol Yehudi, to every Yid, Muvan Sadi Atzad Shali, Hu b'Torah b'mitzvahs, Siki Dine HaTorah Tzarich Ech Tzarich Yehudi Lenhage Ba'olam. And through the Torah, we learn how to conduct ourselves in the world, how to act. That since God's the one who created the world, tzad b'fnei atzmoi, olam ha'ma'aluim u'mastir elokus, because God created the world in such a way to conceal over godliness. It's a game He's playing with us of hide and seek. Hatachtonim down here in this physical world. They're only down to this physical world. Why do you think the upper worlds, the angels, are praising God all day long? Because He's revealed to them. The godly energy is not hidden up there. Down here, it's completely concealed to the point that someone could actually argue that they came here outside of God. They don't know how they got here, but what makes them think it's God? They do two cosmic sparks of dust bang together and just created perfection in the world and the human beings. How the sparks got here, no one knows. That's how concealed God is, that we could actually believe that we got here somehow without Him. And therefore it says, to the point that people can literally conduct themselves in the opposite way of the Torah, God forbid, because God is so concealed. You know, the old joke says if God really wanted us to see Him, He should have put all the garbage in the books and all the revealed godliness in the outside world. Right? And the idea is to transform the worlds through Torah, to reveal God that is concealed. השאלה כיצד יכול יהודי לצייס להפוך את העולם והאנשים העולם שהם בצד עניינים הם יתנהגו על פי הוראת פסק דין התורה. And our job, our mission is to transform the world and the people who are in the world to go in the ways of God in the Torah. הוא הרי נוגע בדבר בזה כיוון שהתורה תלוי בישראל ונתהה בישראל. And the Torah was given specifically for the Jewish people and conditioned upon us because we're the ones who have to teach it to the rest of the world. God's not here teaching the Torah. God's in the Torah. We have to teach the world the Torah. Which is why at the end of the day, you could talk to someone blue in the face and you could bring logic and proof of how God exists and He created the world and all this. Until someone actually learns, it's not going to make sense. It doesn't mean anything. You got to sit down and get inside the book. You got to learn. Especially Chassidus. And the entire life force, the Rebbe says, of the Yidden is dependent on the Torah. You just can't be energized. You can't really have true connection without the Torah. And therefore, we have a mission to make a dwelling place for God down here in the physical world. The And the Rebbe is explaining it. Then that's how God gives us free choice. Because if we really wanted to, and many people do, we can choose, at least temporarily until Mashiach comes, to live our lives without God. That's our decision. I did it for the first 32 years of my life. I didn't know what I was doing, but that's what I was doing. And once you shift your consciousness to living with God, it's a totally different shift in reality. And he chose us, and he's choosing us, and choose the side of Torah, and you're choosing life. ממילא אין זה נוהג לדבר כיוון שאין הוא מוכרח להנהג באופן אחד דווקא. יש לו הן צד טוב והן צד כנגד. זה וזה שופטים, גם לא נפרש. אבל מוסיפים יוד צד, כיוון שהכוונה היא בחרת בחיים, בחר שצד ימין היה צדי הצד שלי. שלו, excuse me. I was just playing on the word tzad and tzadi. The Zehu, wow, how is it possible that the Sikha is so long? Oh, it's not that bad. We're doing good on time. Oh, actually, it's short pages. Okay. A lot of pages, but they're not long. Zehu, al derek ninim Moshe v'ish Elokim. And again, we're coming back to this concept of Moshe being man of God. Moshe al min hamayim shtahiyu. We know that Moshe was drawn from the water, and there's no water other than Torah. Torah is the true water, it's the true life, it's the true thing that gives us life. Because the Torah is the ruler over the world, so to speak, the entire instruction manual for the world. Two beginnings, the Yidden and the Torah. And our mission, the Jewish people and the Torah, is to transform the world into a place where God is revealed. Why do you think there's so much anti-Semitism? What do you think Hitler, Yamach Shemo, tried to do? His name should be erased. Why do you think they want to rid the world of the Jewish people? Because we're here to bring light and goodness in the world. And what they're doing is so opposite. If you had any idea what these sick people do behind closed doors, you would spend your entire life vomiting. You'd never be able to sleep again. You can't even begin to fathom the level of depravity that you see, that is there. You see what's revealed. Can you imagine what's concealed? Because they want to live a life of horrible, disgusting things. And they can't do that if the Jewish people are here, because we are here to bring them to light and to God. And they don't want it. They want to somehow feel that they can lock themselves away and hide from God and hide from the light, steal the light and the energy, and create their own world of complete destruction and horrific things and live together in their filth and all the other horrible things they do. And obviously it's not going to happen, but that's what they're trying to do. Okay. ולא יכן הרי הוא כאילו עומד מן הצר והוא מאוחר ובחרת בחיים. הוא נמצא כאיש נס איש אלוקים צדיק. ועל פי זה מובן שכיוון שצדיק בו עדה בחירה סוי בחיוס איש נשמה בגוף הגשמי והעולם. And it's specifically through us in physical bodies, souls and bodies, that we're able to transform the world. יש כוח להפוך את האדם ותושבי העולם. And therefore we have the power to transform the world. To reveal God in the world through the Torah. And the innermost dimension of the world will be revealed. That's God. And that God should be revealed in the world in an eternal, permanent way. Yud. And we still need to understand. In order to draw down to the service of Tzaddik and to continue bringing godliness into our portion of the world, that is within our permissible abilities. And bring godliness into the natural order of the world. That the service and the speaking, so to speak, in the world is through enclothing this level of godly energy into the world. That the world should be able to receive it. And the entire world will be transformed into a dwelling place for God, and will be a permanent dwelling place for God. Move on to sha'ar pina ba'edam sheminhagis. Excuse me, chas v'shalom. Im kain katzad yesh b'chayir lepo'es t'ad connected. So how can it be when we see so much energy in the world that is opposite God and opposite the Torah, God forbid? How are we supposed to transform this? We have to say, specifically through the prayer of Moshe, the man of God. Specifically through the power of Moshe, we have the ability. Don't think for a second that we're so influential or so holy or important people that people are going to listen to us. It's through the power of the Rebbe. The only reason that a shliach can be so successful in the world and what they're doing is through the power of the Rebbe. We have to obviously be in tune for it, right? I mean, we have to be a proper tzinor, a proper one of the guy's fathers the other day. I saw him somewhere, and he was whatever. He's giving me a compliment about the center, about how many lives we've transformed and how many weddings and Hashem. I said, listen, I'm not doing anything. My job is just to get out of the Rebbe's way. That's all I want to do. He said, yeah, but the Rebbe chose you to be his farmer. And I thought that was a very sweet thing to say. And that's kind of how we have to look at it. That it's God's bounty. It's his crop. It's his earth. It's his everything, right? It's the Rebbe's power. We have to be a proper receptacle and vessel. As a famous saying goes, any successful shliach will tell you, I'm trying to be successful. I say what the biggest job that we have as shluchim, if you want to call us that, is to get out of the Rebbe's way, is to remove our yeshus out of the way to allow him to work through us. And it's only through the powers, the Rebbe is saying now, through the Rebbe, that we have the ability to transform a world that appears to be so opposite Torah and mitzvot. And bring that godly energy to the lowest aspects of creation and transform it. Okay, you're off. That Moshe was brought from the water. And this is hinted on the revealing of the name Havaya. Above from the world. The concealed world. And a simple question arises. Hamayim, the water. Anilus of the Nilos, the Nile River. Tisham b'seif al sefas ha'ayor. B'smechos the avodah zara the Mitzrayim. The question is, out of all rivers that God chose Moshe to be taken out of, he took him out of the Nile, the river that was the most steeped with avodah zara, with the most evilness going on that you could imagine in Egypt, was connected to that water. That's where Moshe came from the seat of the worst evil. Dafka bat Paroi melech Mitzrayim. Hotziah es Moshe min hamayim. Specifically, Batia, the daughter of Paro. Woo. Took Moshe out. So we have the klipa of the klipa of the klipa. The Kral Moshe al Shem min hamayim shtiyel, and called him Moshe, drawing from the water. The Dafka al Shem zehu nekra kitzad meteim zeim haperish v'chasidus. Shezeu alma diskafia taknis hefach ma'olam hazeh hapara. And we just learned that Moshe's source comes from the highest levels in the upper worlds, pure godliness, the complete opposite of the avodah zarah, of the idol worship of Egypt. And yet he was drawn out of the water in the worst klipa, worst place in the world. Seems like a big contradiction, right? And the explanation is the highest levels of energy come down to the lowest aspects of creation. That's the idea. That's why we're stuck. The people in this generation are very, very lofty souls. Why do you think there's so many challenges with the youth in this generation? Because they're very, very sensitive souls. All this trauma is connected to deep sensitivity because our souls come from a very high, lofty place. This whole generation, there's of course how much more so the leader but to deal with what we're dealing with, you have to have a very high, lofty soul. Then that's not an arrogant thing to say. The Arizal says that we're Gilgulim, we're reincarnations of all the souls that went out from Egypt. In order to reach a level of godliness completely above from the boundaries of creation, specifically had to come into the lowest parts. And therefore Moshe had to be taken out of the worst place of avodah zarah, of idol worship, the Nile. And that means he was drawn out from the water. From the concealed world to the revealed world. Teva is taken specifically from this little ark thing, but referring to that he was taken out from the Teva, the surroundings above. Imo Shechina, the Acher Zamin Hamayim Mishtiyehu Bas Paroi Dafka, Gadol, By Paroi Melech Mitzrayim, and he was raised in the house of the worst klipa. Hazan no saying Koach LeMoshe. Shechol Ishbor Achacha Es Klipa Va'Oidei Zeh Mitzrayim Hotzi Es Bnei Yisrael. And specifically, that's why he got chosen to take the Jewish people out, because he came from such a high, lofty place and was such an elevated soul that he got sent to the lowest aspect of creation to pull us out of that place. Nimsa b'pasuk to feel the Moshe Elohim, and again we see the pasuk of Moshe, the man of God. Flog in Shlishi Elokim Moshe. His work is to bring forth the godly energy into this lowest aspect of creation. To feel Moshe, and this is hinted in the prayer of Moshe. Chassidus explains to feel a shir. It's a prayer of wealth, connected to the very essence of God. The Maya Mahavai Elokim, even above from the level of Havaya and Elokim. The Gamri Mimitsia Sa'idam Vishlailos and Mitzio Sa'idam Nim Sagalukas Bakal Idam Makal Hadaraka Shabat Takton Shin Takton Mamatu Numenu. As the Rebbe just says again, the highest and highest of levels he came from and got sent down to the lowest aspects of creation. And all of this will be revealed in the true and complete redemption. And that God will remove the spirit of impurity from the earth. There'll be no more wars. And the entire occupation of the world will only be to know God. And then the entire work of our hands of this galus will be established. And the true essence of the pleasure of our souls will be revealed. And the work of our hands will be established forever. Yud base. And this is hinted again in the Mizmor Tzadik. Yudua HaPerush. That God created this world with the letter Hey. And this world was created with the letter Hey. And the world stands upon three things. And therefore it is connected to the three levels of the world. Bria, Tzir, Nasiya, the three levels of Ishtalshlus. Makshava, Dibra, B'maisa, which are connected to thought, speech, and deed. And the left column is connected to Asiya. Shalina Amar Af Asiya Af Amapsik. Kivan Sha'odam Al Miloi Hanivra. Muvan Sha'al Pia Odam Hazan Nivra Bahe. Sheyesh Hapasik Lifne Ha'odam Ha'asiya, referring specifically to this physical world. Afa Beche, Hariza Al Me'ilui. And God specifically created the world through the name Elohim. And the world is a world that conceals over godliness. And the work of the Yidden is to reveal God, specifically through Torah and mitzvot. Kav Shemagia Gam B'Makoy Shemahava Hashem Yasa Ois Kap Kuf Sheharegel Homismoli. You read the Mata Min Hashor, drawing down the energy down here below. The Mata Mahamat Koim Shabo Bara HaKadosh Baruch Hu Oidam L'Tchila V'Kavana B'Zahi Asher Baralu Kim L'Sois L'Tikum. That God created this world to be repaired, to be fixed. The Yoshahat Toichef HaKadosh Baruch B'Masa Bereshis. The Vorar as Makoim Zeh, Kafishka fall Moshe, and God sent Moshe down here. And this is the completion of the service of the Tzaddik, that his job is to arouse us and to help bring the godly energy down into this physical world. Okay, Yud Gimel. Al Pi Kohan Al Muvan. Medua Dafka Moshe Hu Begula Shel Yisrael. And according to everything we said above, we see specifically why the redemption of the Jewish people takes place through the leader of the Jewish people. Begulus Mitzrayim. And just like Moshe took out of Egypt, Gal Rishon Hu Gal Acharon. The first Redeemer, Moshe, is connected to the last Redeemer, Mashiach. Kivan B'chayoseh B'dargas Tefillah Moshe Ish Elokim. And again, we see the prayer of the man of God, Moshe. Yesh B'koach L'hamshik Ula Gilu Koach L'bli Gvul. Because only Moshe has the ability to draw down this godly energy that is above the world into the world. Ba'oidim. The Gula Esbani Yisrael Makah Mitzrayim Magvuli, and redeem the Jewish people in the whole world from any of their boundaries or obstacles or limitations. Ad Gama Klipas Va'al Zeh Yesh Mitzrayim, including the Klipa, the forces of impurity that we went out from Egypt. B'koach Zeh Gama Gula Mitzis Shlema, and this power specifically is connected to the true and complete redemption. And just like when I took you out of Egypt, I will once again show you wonders. Lo rak nisim amnavushim beteva. Not only wonders that are concealed within the nature, connected to the name Elohim, Elagam b'siyam begiluit nisim giluyim shelamayar mederach hatev legamri ad niflois. But rather miracles that are completely above the nature God will reveal to us into a way they will become wondrous, that there will be no doubt in anyone's mind that it's through the hand of God, our redemption. And this redemption will have no exile to further it. It will be the final one. And the entire world will be transformed to a dwelling place for God. An eternal, permanent dwelling place. Forever. Yud Dalid. And now we're going to answer the beginning question we started out with. Why Shabbos Hagadol is specifically connected to Shabbos, and why that's the beginning of the miracles of going out of Egypt. Specifically through the miracle of the firstborn of the Egyptians killing off themselves. Makah es Mitzrayim, that began the redemption from Egypt. Eretz Ma'ala Gilulim, the Biur, the Kap, the Fall Ede Gilui Hakal Na'ala Elokus. And this began the process of drawing down and revealing godly energy into the world. The Mara Mahanisim Shakaroi Lebanei Shal, that's above a normal channel of miraculous things. And therefore it drew down this power of godly energy that is without boundaries or limitations, true unlimited power. That was able to reach even into such a lowly place like Egypt. And therefore specifically it was called a great miracle. And specifically this was the beginning of the redemption and the miracles that took place of taking us out of Egypt. And therefore it specifically happened on a Shabbat. Because Shabbat is connected to redemption. And Shabbat will be an eternal rest that will take place in the times of the redemption. And this resting on Shabbat will be representative of redemption. And therefore it was called a great miracle. That the Egyptians were fighting and killing themselves. And this is the opposite of what is Shabbat. And therefore it's called a great Shabbat, because Shabbat is usually connected to peace. The Haisif, in addition to this, and as we find ourselves on Shabbos Parshat Tzav, Ein Sav Ela Lashon Zriros, Miyad Lizriros, we're referring to fast very quickly. And that the redemption should take place in a permanent way, an eternal way below, very quickly. And therefore specifically connected to Moshe Rabbeinu. Tzavas Acharoi. Vaidezeh Haroin hu zeh magir l'kol Yehudi. Sheyesh lo tzivoy v'nesa koach habliti mugbalah HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And this is referring to through Moshe, that he has the ability to draw down this eternal, permanent, unbelievable, miraculous energy to all the Yidden and the whole generation. Miyad ein loy showing parsha o afilo ochit, and it should not even wait for one more second, but should happen immediately. Kivanshu the vush bezel the gamri. Shezeh chayev chador toich. The Doiros, Indians and Nimshak, Vaoifan, Zrivos, Gam, Adoras Haboim, Lamed Rabim, Lashan Rabim, in a multitude. Asher Yisnach Hazaka Shloisha Doiros, Aizen Nasa Inin Nitri Lokal Hadoiros, and it should be permanent throughout all generations. Should call Po'alahu, Osebo Eifan, Umasya Deno Kananeo, in the establishing of the work of our hands. Tesvav. Amor le'el, and as what we said above, as we find ourselves in the month of Nisan in this year, the year I will show you wonders, and including the wonders and miracles we're already seeing right now, as we came very close to the miracles and wonders we saw in the time of Purim. And it says that the nations of the world at that time, specifically the Arab nations, were warring against each other. And that is a clear sign our sages teach us as one of the forecomings to the redemption, that they will be warring amongst themselves, just like what took place in Shabbos Agadol. And it's taking place now again. And watch, it's just starting. You're going to see very soon how they start attacking each other. And for sure, God will show us once again miracles and wonders, including the true and complete wonders of the true redemption. That's what I'm saying now. Melech Prasti, Melech Adam, Aram, that the nations of the Arab world are fighting amongst each other. These are all signs of the redemption. That when you see the Arab nations fighting against each other, this is a sign the redemption is very near. And Melech Mashiach will stand up on the roof of his Beis Hamikdash, and he will announce to the Jewish people, the time of your redemption has arrived. Exactly what the Rebbe just did when he's saying this. He's quoting the pasuk and he's saying it himself in front of all the Yidden in 7:7. It's exactly what's taking place. Tes Zayin. Okay, so last letter. And everything we learned above must turn into action, must turn into deeds that we do ourselves. And we're standing together in the Shabbos of wonders and miracles. In the month of Nisan. In the week leading up to Pesach. The festival of our freedom. Including the miracles we've seen recently. That we see with our physical eyes. Amongst all the nations. Excuse me. It's necessary to arouse every single one of us even more, that our will and our desire and power to fulfill all of our service in a way of a miraculous way. Ad nisim nisim, in a miracle of miracles. First of all, we must increase in our learning of Torah and mitzvahs and do it in the most profound way possible. And we must go higher and higher, from strength to strength, until we reach the big miracle. The true miracle and the greatness of God. The power to connect with Mizmor Tzadik, to connect to Moshe Rabbeinu, the man of God. And God will establish the work of our hands. And the power from every one of us comes from Moshe specifically, the leader of our generation. Including the Moshe that's amongst us. And all our people are righteous. And will bring about the completion of the work of the tzaddik. And all these things must apply to ourselves and to all those that we can have an influence on. Especially spreading out the teachings of Chassidus in the furthest means possible. Including having an influence of the nations of the world and teaching about the 7 laws of Noah that are applicable to them. Including in all of our deeds in service of God. And through Hashgacha Pratis. The Or B'Yamim Eilu Lata Mispar 104. Gematria Tzadik. We find ourselves connected to the light of the day. To the I think the Tilm of the day was 104, which is Gematria Tzadik. The Beit Hanabachim Shal Medina Za. And we have all the power here together with us. The Kasher, the Kviyos, Jaim, Este, Esther, Yoim, the Chodesh Nisan, the Shana Zu, Kiyoim, Muyod, Muychad, the Chazik, and the Tenes Atoy, Kiyots Beza. The year we have tremendous power to accomplish all of our deeds. Yisoidas, Biyushoiv, Ha'oilam, Avor Kal Tushvi, Hamedina, Makal Tushvi, Al-Oilam. The Sois, Zais, Ad, Oifen, Sadik, the Hagia, B'choyitzer, Sha'ain, Chutzim, Limenum, and should be spread out to the furthest means possible. But Gashem Yucheres Be'inyan Jahazman Gamor, and we have reached the end of all times. Sipuch Kol Tzarich Hahag L'Kul Nitzchim, and it's important to supply all those who are in need of their festival needs. Tzarichei Haseder, and the needs for the Seder. The Tzricha Yom Tov V'Klal, including all their needs for Yom Tov. Yesh La'ora Oidish Eni Noiseh V'Kasher Im Zeh, including all these matters. B'Makoymot She'orichim B'Tzidrim Tziborim, and we should have Seders and invite whoever needs to come. Klalim Mishnah Kama Makoymot Shebehem Asa V'Kamara Orich Rak Seder Echad. And everyone should have as many Seders as possible and bring as many people as possible. Including both Seders. In America, we do too. Both nights. That they must have their needs for both Seders. And God will surely bless each one of us with all of our needs. May it be God's will. We will have the completion of the prayer of Moshe. The Moshe, Moshe, the man of God. And God will establish the work of our hands, including all of our deeds at the time of the exile. And the most important thing is that we'll be in the Beis Hamikdash Shlishi, Mikdash Adonai Kano Yedecha, the temple established by God's hands Himself. I want to bless you all and bless all of Am Yisrael, that it should be a true Pesach of Geula, of redemption. We should have individual redemption. God should take us out of any of our challenges, difficulties, obstacles, real, imaginary, physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, any capacity whatsoever. And we should have the true Geula Mitzvah Shlema with the full Hizgalus of Melech HaMashiach. There's not a shir next week because it is Pesach, but the following week we will have a shir for Parsha Shmini. And long before, we will be in the Beis Hamikdash Shlishi with Moshe Rabbeinu, with the Rebbe, and with all of our Tzaddikim, all of our leaders, and all of our people. And it should happen immediately, long before, so we can have the Carbon Pesach in the Beis Hamikdash. God bless you. Pesach Kasher v'Sameach. Moshiach Now.